So, you're just setting up a business or a side hustle, and you're not sure whether you should be a sole trader or a limited company. Well, no worries. Having done this a little bit myself and set up a few different companies from scratch, in this video, I'm going to talk about why, if you're starting out, sole trader is ultimately the way to go. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Charles, and by day I work at Google helping different businesses grow, and by night I make YouTube videos just like this one. Welcome to the channel. Don't forget to check out the sister video to this one on why you should choose to set up as a limited company, so you can kind of choose and compare what's best for your situation. Alright, so we're going to cover 5 key elements in this video, and they are liability and legal responsibility, tax, privacy and transparency, salaries, and expenses. Let's start off with liability and legal responsibility. So what does it actually mean to be a sole trader? What are the kind of legal implications here? Well, being a sole trader means that you're effectively self-employed, which is a term you've probably heard before, and you are the sole owner of the business, which means that from a legal perspective, you and the business are one legal entity, which you may have heard is known as unlimited liability. So in other words, put simply, the business is effectively you. So if there's any financial or legal obligations that rest with you, they're going to rest with you and the business for good and for bad. So, maybe if the business falls into debt, or you break the law, or you don't meet your tax obligations, you're going to be personally liable for that, and you're going to have to pay it out of your own pocket too. Eek. Alright, that's the liability side covered. The next big key thing to cover is tax. And for sole traders, what we've got to do is we've got to submit a self-assessment tax return to HMRC at the end of each tax year in April, and pay national insurance too. So, not too different from your employer, but this time you have to submit your own tax return yourself. It doesn't get automatically deducted. And you can face penalties and fines if you don't comply. So while you don't necessarily need to get an accountant if you're a sole trader, you definitely want to know what's coming in and what's coming out, just so you've got a good understanding of what your outgoings are, what your incomings are, and also maybe set aside some money for tax at the end of the year. And something that's worked for me, like a general rule of thumb that I live by, is that if as a sole trader you earn up to £50,000 per annum, then you should save about 25% each month to cover those tax liabilities. And generally though, it becomes a bit more tax efficient to move from a sole trader to a limited company when you're making a profit of about £30,000 per year. That's kind of the point in which, when I was a sole trader, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be making about £30,000 profit once I take away all costs. That's the point in which, for me, it made sense to look at moving to a limited company. But it does depend a little bit on the business. So I'll pop a link in the description which will have a little bit of detail around different tax rates and personal allowance limits in the description, which will hopefully help with your situation. Alright, now we've got the tax section out of the way, it's very important to know what kind of things you need to disclose as a company. So let's cover privacy and transparency. And actually, sole traders are free from having to disclose any kind of information publicly, like the business finances, how much is in the bank, or how much assets you have, or who owns the business. So you can run your business pretty privately and, kind of outside of the public eye, which is pretty neat. None of any of your financial documentation is shared publicly, and also one other little nice bonus is that the amount of paperwork you have to do as a sole trader compared to a limited company is also quite a bit less too. So it's a bit less intensive, both on the point on your privacy and also on the amount of paperwork that you have to do too. Next up, let's cover salaries. And when it comes to salaries, as a sole trader, you can kind of pull out money as and when you want to, and as much as you want to. And the concept is known as something called personal drawings, which effectively means you can kind of spend the money that you take out as personal drawings exactly as you wish. And you don't really have to do any dividends, you don't have to set up any PAYE either. Generally, the recommendation is to set up a business bank account, something I did, something I would definitely recommend, and something like Starling Bank or even Monzo business accounts. They're both free, they both just make it like pretty easy just to start off with using like a basic free business account. Just makes your life a little bit easier going forward into the future really. Next up, let's cover expenses. And salaries are just one of the different costs to your business among many others. And how business expenses work for a limited company and for a sole trader, well, they're pretty similar. As a sole trader, whilst you and the business are one legal entity, you're still a business. So it's worth thinking about the money in the bank account, predominantly using it for business purposes. So if you're getting a new laptop or a new Mac Mini to make your work more efficient, and that little baby did exactly that, then that's totally cool. But if you fancy like a new watch, that's unlikely to fly. But don't forget, if you're a sole trader, you're a limited company, expenses are business costs. So it means at the end of the day, it's going to reduce your profit, which means you will then effectively pay less tax. And ultimately, a business expense like buying a new product for the business or maybe some new camera equipment, in my case, to grow my YouTube channel, it's an investment towards helping my little business to grow. And that's how I kind of think about it. So in summary, as a sole trader, you can go about your business perfectly legally, perfectly privately as a sole trader, no problem at all. But on the other hand, you have to accept the full liability if something did go wrong. And one other little thing to consider is that banks and investors may be less likely to lend to you or work with you just because you don't have the legitimacy that a limited company provides. But I'd personally say that if you're just starting out as a business, as maybe like a side project or a side hustle, or you're just starting out at the very beginning and you're not necessarily got a plan to make loads of money very quickly, start off with a sole trader. It's 100% the best way to go to start. And it's what I've done with many different projects too. Plus, it's much easier just to get going and not have to worry about setting up a limited company and everything that entails with that. It does depend on a few different factors though. So obviously, of course, do look at a little few options and look at the links in the description that I'll pop down there for some more guidance and some more kind of advice. Oh, and I would highly recommend you watch the sister video to this one on why you may want to start a limited company as a good comparison to this video, which we've talked about why you would want to start as a sole trader. And if this video about the limited company doesn't float your boat, then I will see you in the very next video, and do like this video if you found it helpful. Thank you so much for watching.